Hey everyone, welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host, Nitin Bajaj, and joining me today is Matthew Spacie. Matthew, welcome on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Nitin. Thank you.
Pleasure's all ours. Thanks for being here. So let's start with the big question. Who is Matthew?
That's good. So when you sent me these questions, that's probably the one that took the longest to think about, actually. But I'm from the UK. I was born in Cyprus, the son of a soldier. And I think sort of my I guess as I grew up, my big influences in my life in those early stages were, of course, my mother, who was a very spiritual person, a Catholic. My father, who was deeply connected to nature. I remember at the weekends, every weekend would be up a mountain or invariably down a mountain as well. And I sort of carried that into sort of, I guess, who I am today, and I love of the outdoors, and I love sport, and it's been a huge part of my life as a child, and now what I do in my livelihood. I was lucky enough to play a lot of rugby. I played rugby for India, actually, and that sort of moulded a lot of some things we do today in Magic Bus. But as a young chap, I went through school like every other sort of kid in the Western world, and was very fortunate enough when I finished school. I had this incredible inner sort of sense to travel to India at the age of 18, and I travelled to Calcutta and worked with Mother Teresa for 6 months, and that was to really mould, with the other elements of my youth. That was going to sort of mould the next couple of chapters of my life. Really, I got on a plane at 29 to go to India. I was sent over to run a travel company, but that soon flipped into starting Magic Bus, this organisation that I run now. Went through a few financial issues. I ran out of money because we couldn't pay for my existence running a charity, so I started a .com and did reasonably well off that as well. And but I think I would define myself as I thought about this question as someone who's really still on this journey. I feel I'm certainly a journeyman. It's quite ironic. It's called the Magic Bus now because I feel it is, this metaphor of going from my childhood in many ways to my adulthood, my livelihood, and there are many questions I still have unanswered. Often helped by my lovely wife, who is always probing me. Actually, she's been an amazing influence on my life, just to sort of ensure that I keep honest to what I want to do and who I am, and so that's Matthew Spacie.
It's beautiful, and what's even more beautiful is the story of Magic Bus. So tell us about Magic Bus. What's the mission, the vision, and more importantly, what's the impact that you and the team have been able to create?
So, as I said, evidently I'm not from India. Right. I spent 30 years in India now, but originally you sort of turn up on the streets of a city like Mumbai, and it's a city of 25 million people. 12 million people have, and 12.5 million or 30 million don't have, and had a huge impact on me. And so, after a few years of sort of just, I guess, residing in this, I really felt I wanted to do something that was a bit more positive than selling tickets on airplanes and package holidays. So I ended up actually starting a rugby team for a bunch of young lads who lived on the street outside my office. And that started sort of, I guess it created more questions than answers about how I wanted to sort of try and engage with young people. I was very fascinated but by this idea that you could have so much young talent that was really not being, it really was being misdirected, and that really did fascinate me. The rugby team became their passion as much as my passion, and I saw the most beautiful transformation of 25 young men become extraordinary adults, actually, and really reach their potential. And today what it is we have offices across Asia, and we essentially we work on two things. We work on this idea that if you're poor, you can still be happy. So we work a lot of agency on this idea of self-actualization, right? So the idea that if you give young people the tools to move from poverty, they can do it. but then also the opportunity structures have to be there as well. So it's no good saying, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to ensure that you have the right, the right skills, the right efficacy, the right critical life skills, and then leave them hanging because you haven't given them the financial means to get out of poverty. So we offer that as well. So today what Magic Bus does is it's a poverty alleviation program. In its truest form, it takes young people from childhood through to livelihood. It's as long as a 7-year journey. As a young adolescent, we'll build all those critical skills for you. We do that now today for nearly 1.5 million children across Asia. And then at the end of that journey, our stake in the ground, if you like, is to make sure that young person also gets a job. So we're now placing 150,000 young people this year in work, and so it is amazing. It is the scope and scale of it is, it's way beyond. I think this was quite an iterative journey for me. We didn't. Everyone's quite disappointed by the view that obviously when you start these things, you of course. I'm assuming many people don't really understand how big it could be, and it's we're now in India. We have programming in Bangladesh, Myanmar, and we're just about to move into Southeast Asia actually. So we've just got this quite good plans. We have a program which for $25 a year, with some sense of surety, 85% is the number actually. We can move a young person from poverty, and that's an amazing thing to know, right? So, and if you've got that IP, it's almost algorithmic, really. So, the idea is the more capital we can throw behind that, then the bigger we can solve this. In India, it's a 300 million person problem, in terms of below the $2. So,
and what's fascinating about those $25 is you're not just moving one person through that poverty; you're moving the entire generation. And several generations to come.
You're absolutely. In fact, we're just about to change our branding to this actually, because often anecdotal, isn't it? So you start to talk to some of the graduates, and and absolutely, and there are so many stories of when we've been into families where we've only caught the middle child, and the children who have gone before, the older children have all been married at 12, 13, 14 years old. The younger children post the Magic Bus intervention. They're all doing their graduation, and their view on life is very different. And this ripple effect through the program, through the community, has become so apparent now. You're absolutely right. It does impact. So it's difficult to measure all that, of course. Though, so I measure the numbers of young people on the program, but yes, it's multiples of that, of course.
Of course, you can capture and measure the direct impact, but the indirect impact is so massive.
Correct. That's absolutely, and it's not just the children, obviously, who are on the program. It's the parents who's, we on the programming itself. We use a lot of games and sport as our intervention. So the idea is this power of play, right? So if you throw a ball up in a village, and you can close your eyes almost and imagine that every child will gravitate towards that ball because it's fun, it's play, right? But if you use, as we do in Magic Bus, that moment to then communicate, to connect with young people. It's a very relevant form. So that's sort of our 101 of how we start working with young people in the community. But then we invite the parents. So there's a wonderful story. When I was in the early days of when we couldn't get any of the girls to come and be part of the program. And so we started this is in this big community called Divinity, in Bombay. It's one of the largest low-income slums in the world. So we started a football team for the mothers. We said, okay, we're gonna start, which became a football league. So forget even the girls. We didn't even start working with the girls. So then all the women, it's once every year. There's a huge community team event. The grandmothers came along and said, we've never played before. Can we play? So we started a grandmothers league, but the condition was that the girls then had to be the referees and be part of that team. So the whole idea was that you could, the whole community started, this incredible sort of this incredible participation.
It's so cool.
Around. Yeah, it's amazing. And these are stories where where I said it's about a single idea perhaps, but then this ripple effect through the community is incredible.
That is so amazing. Well, congratulations and kudos to you and the entire team for being able to create impact at that scale. So, Matthew, as you're scaling, as you're growing the impact of the work you're doing, I'm curious to know what's the biggest challenge you and your team are facing?
So I think the easiest thing for me would be to say capital. You know, I spoke at the beginning of this interview about it's almost algorithmic how we thought about this. You know, we understand what the cost of input is, and we understand what the output is. And therefore, you know, $25, you should just get more inputs and more outputs. But I think we have grown this organisation, and you see almost what it could achieve. I think one of the really difficult things that I feel quite challenged about is how we perceive the value of what we do in the community, and that's not just the local, but the broader community we operate in. When you operate in an organisation like Magic Bus, you know, and you start growing, and it becomes this beast that you have to feed, right? And my business, my organisation, our business is very different than anyone else's, and that every year I have to start almost at zero to keep going to the next number, right? But I'm dealing with children. So if I have to have a young person in my program who, you know, I can't just suddenly say, well, sorry, there's no money, we've got to cut you out now. And so we have this unique problem, you know, that the balance sheet goes to zero every year, and you then start collecting. And when I talk about value, it's also that the world doesn't quite value the need or understands that actually this is an important thing that we're doing that can't be monetized, right? And so that plays out in a number of ways. In that the level of control people want to assert on your organization is quite extraordinary, right? So we'll talk about capital, right? So people will tell you where you will spend your capital. You know, I don't think anyone's ever said to me, Matthew, here's $1 million to grow your brand, right? But everyone will say be sustainable and grow, right? So, and I would love to challenge any company that's growing without a dollar spent, you know, and we have. So this idea of risk, you know, there's very, people are very risk averse in charity, you know, but that's why nothing changes, right? That's why we have 300 million people still living. And this idea again of talent, you know, of how, you know, it's almost this vitriol sort of judgment on how much I pay my CEO for doing the good. Imagine this guy sits in India and does 1.5 million kids, moves them out of poverty, but the world doesn't want me to pay him $1 million, right? I mean, could you ever think of someone more worthy of $1 million than someone who does that? So it's very hard in terms of how the outside world values what you do and respects what you do. And I think so. It's very difficult then to grow to where you need to go to this end game. So large, somewhat part of my time now in this challenge is to try and start talking about this more openly. Because I sit slightly outside the organisation now and just talk about how we need to be thinking about nurturing and supporting organisations like Magic Bus.
Now, as we work on challenges, the flip side of that comes opportunities. What's the most exciting opportunity you're looking at?
So I think a couple of things. I think what I'm seeing at the moment, what I'm sensing is this movement, if you like, towards this new hybrid way of working, of how we structure businesses. You know, it started in the business world, perhaps with things we use terms like triple bottom line, and with sort of people as ESG. People are becoming certainly more sensitive to this. On the other flip side of it, you've got the charities like Magic Bus, and I'm starting to see these things merge in through a new type of social enterprise, and that excites me because I feel it's a bigger movement. You know, you don't have to sit on either side of the fence. You know, it can accommodate far more people in thought. So this idea that you could, you know, I mean, and of course the idea of, you know, organisations like Tom's, of course, exists where you you give one, get one. But this idea of actually embedding in the cap table, embedding, you know, equity, which is more common pooled around the participants in a program, or, you know, or all the investors, all the employees. And so we're looking at a number of ventures now, which can, I think, take the monkey off our back in terms of the quality of capital, but then also try and generate, you know, the income for the organisation. So I see that as a huge opportunity for the organisation.
Very innovative, and I think the impact scales on that will turn pretty quickly.
Yes,
you're kind of creating a captive model there.
Absolutely. And you know when I talk, it's interesting because when I talk to people about the the business of, they can immediately relate to it, of course, right? Because it's this sort of, we work in this sort of system which enables me to value things, and I think it's going to open up a whole new conversation with people who maybe more don't trust as much, or because we can apply some of the traditional financial tools to into a sort of social enterprise now, which is easier to monitor. But so I think that's the breadth of conversation, the level of investment, the change of behaviour of people. I think I'm starting to see where people can put one step into a social enterprise and start to understand, have a conversation with me about actually what are the real challenges of growing a behavioural change organisation, which essentially is what Magic Bus is. Yeah.
Super exciting. Now, as we look forward in the future of what's coming, I want to take a moment and look back in the rearview mirror, and I would love for you to share 2 examples, one in which things worked out beyond your expectations and became a huge success, and another one which did not work as you had expected and was a failure. And you hinted at a couple of those, but I would love for you to go into a little more detail.
So I guess I'll probably talk the story which probably resonates the most and has had the most profound impact on me was the story about the formation of Magic Bus and how we started that. And I used to play a lot of rugby in Bombay, and used to play for a club called the Bombay Gymkhana. So it's this very elite club in South Bombay. They didn't have enough teams to play against, only 2 or 3 teams in the city. So I decided to start a rugby club with the children that lived outside literally on the street, in this street called Fashion Street. And what was incredible was the minute we decided to do that, I was able to bring them from this environment, the street environment, in their chaddis and their chappals, and literally walk in to this incredible environment, with the wealthiest people in the city, and change in the same changing room, and for 40 minutes be total equals with those people. It was incredible. And so I thought I was doing really well. And then as in my context, I've come from a very white middle class background, and felt that if I get them a job, everything's going to be solved. And they're not going to be poor anymore, and they're going to be happy. And so that's what I did. I ended up with these 25 young lads, getting them through my own networks, getting them jobs. And then within 3 months, every single one of those young men had left, run away, just didn't turn up for work. And that's because words like dignity of labour and this whole idea of just but in essence they were having far more fun living on the street and doing the things they were doing. There's musty in India, so selling black market tickets or whatever they were doing, which was and so from that, which was I felt it was such a failure, I thought, what am I going to do? But from that, the lesson which was incredible for me was this idea that you can't fix things quickly like that, right? And I think we have this big problem, certainly in the West, that it's sort of, you create this sort of this 101, and there's a problem, let's go straight to the symptom, right, and then solve that. And but essentially one realizes that actually there's a whole journey that takes place, getting a young person through, navigating through adolescence, especially when you're living in poverty, is such a difficult thing, and it takes time. And that's what we did. We went back and said, okay, let's start working not with 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Let's start working with 12, 13-year-olds and start the journey there to the point in time when they would, on that day, make that decision to go and get a job and be financially sustainable. So it was a tremendous lesson. Unfortunately, the world hasn't caught up with me on this one, because the world still thinks I could do it in 3 weeks, and that is a big problem for us as a society as well. Is that's obviously not going to happen, and we're not able to get success. But that's that was the lovely story of failure to success.
That's fascinating. Matthew, what do you do? You're extremely busy. You travel a lot. You're hopping literally around the world. What do you do for fun?
I'm quite you know, I'd like to think you know, a lot of the work I do today is born out of fun play. Yes. You know, of course it's there, yes. But you know, you have to work hard at it, right? And I think I don't try and separate it so much from who I am and what I do. So I don't sort of think, okay, I'm going to now go and, I mean, I love mountain biking, I love nature, I love being outside, but I don't kind of I try not to separate it too much from my day, actually. The benefit of, I guess, running your own thing as well is that if I can integrate as much of enjoyment as I can into the, you know, into the 9 to 5, that I actually find that easier. Having said all this, I have a 7, 8, and a 9-year-old.
Oh my God!
And they, you know, and as a late, sort of elderly father, it's just, you know, I'm quite determined. Also, you know, they keep me young, of course, but I'm quite determined to engage in them, right? And they and all the fun. So I'm still tickle monster and all these other things. So, you know, like I think I sort of, my back hurts a bit more than I think probably most dads do sometimes after a lot of wrestling and skipping and dancing. Just dance is a huge thing in our house right now. So you know, yeah, that's how I kind of do it. And you know, I try and make them as much part of the journey now as I can. Actually, they are my fun. My wife and my 3 lovely children. And so for the first time, they're flying to America actually to be on this trip with me. So that's great. So cool. It's lovely. Yeah, I'm very happy about that. So
that is so awesome.
It is. Yeah, it makes me happy.
Again, I have to say this: having a 7, 8, 9-year-old, you're still out there helping other children, other families, other communities. I really appreciate what you do. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I thank my wife. You could speak to my wife, actually. Yes. So she bears it, of course, but bears the brunt of it. But yeah, to me it feels that it is possibly the most difficult thing. Yes. And I'm in many ways I reflect on this, in that possibly Magic Bus would not have happened had I had my you know, had my children earlier, and you know, I was absolutely devoted and focused to Magic Bus, and I think, you know, so it's really important for the payback now is to make sure that I look after my family and I spend time there, and so I you know, I'm trying to balance that much more. I have a fantastic CEO in Bombay who looks after 3,000 staff now we have in India. Wow. So you know, I think, you know, and yeah, I think we all understand now the ecosystem we work in is different with the sort of, you know, after 25 years of doing this, right? So, yeah.
Well, which brings me to my favorite part of the show. We call it the one-line life lessons. I'd love for you to share the wisdom you've acquired over the past 25 years or more, and tell us your one-line life lessons.
You know, I think you've already touched on it once, but it's such a crucial thing, right? Is to have fun. It's life lesson number one. And I think, you know, again, this comes with age as well, and that is that you realise that nothing is, because it's not permanent, it's not particularly real, right? The world I live in, so, or all of us live in, sorry. Yeah. And so it's really important to be grounded and understand that this is transient, and we are here for such a short amount of time. Yes. That we just have to throw ourselves in and enjoy ourselves. And I think, you know, and I'm really I'm starting to think about the things I don't enjoy and I can let go of far more in my life. And I think that's also comes perhaps more with age, but yeah, have fun, smile, engage. Okay. Number 2, I think number 2, I would say is for me is about commitment, right? And I think, until you commit, there's always that opportunity to take a step back and not do. Once you commit, I think for me it's almost providence takes over, right? And all sorts of events start to happen that you never foresaw. People you meet, the environments you find yourself in. And there's a great deal of genius and magic once you make that commitment. And there's, as I say, this providence, this idea that actually this energy we don't fully understand takes over. So I think, but that only happens when you're in the game 100% and you commit to that. So I think this idea of commitment is really important to me. So number 3 is this idea about failure. and I think, I don't know whether it's, I don't know what's happened in my life, but I've never really worried too much. I mean, maybe the bar's always been set so low, but I haven't ever worried about failure. Even in Magic Bus, I say to people, that we need to hold true to what we know is the right thing to do, right? And we all need to be together in that, and to know that we're sailing, we sailed the right course. And if we fail, we'll know that, right? But and so what, right? What is there to lose? And I feel there's I think far too much weightage around failure. And what is failure? Someone told me that 95% of all entrepreneurs fail, but that's by what standard, right? I think we need to get this monkey off our back. So yeah, be fearless. So number 4 was to try and find the divinity in everything you do, and I think that for me is not just in the relationships we have, but it's in the environment, the broad environment, as well as the trees and the rivers, of course. But I think innately I believe that people are really good, and I think we often forget that in the heat of battle, don't we? And I think. If we bring ourselves back to that divinity, that's that connectedness that we all have, and it helps me in terms of when you're trying to draw on empathy, you're trying to understand, how this connectiveness can get you to how this connectiveness can just create far more positive energy. And the kind of outcomes we get with Magic Bus, I believe, is because we're able to get a collective energy. We're able to make sure that everyone is connected to that vision, to that cause. And I feel that's where the power of what we've achieved comes from. So number 5 for me is trying to keep present. And I know that's such a cliche. There's books and books written about this, of course, the power of now being... Yes. But it... and I think, and actually, ironically, my children have really helped me with this, right? Because they demand you're in the present. They are there. They stand in front of you and, kick you if you don't. And but it is also really important because, as an entrepreneur as well, these ranges of emotions that go up and down. You have a good day, it's brilliant. You come home to the family, it's amazing. A terrible day because money's gone or someone's done something, or whatever, and so it's your mind is always all over the place all the time, and I think that's a very common sort of found entrepreneurial leader issue. So I think just making sure you're rooted in what is real, which is that moment in time, and trying to close everything out. Other than that is something that I'm getting better at it. I don't stress too much about the past. It's gone. I have no idea what's going on tomorrow, so let's not worry too much about it.
Matthew, thank you for sharing your journey, your story, for being vulnerable, for being open, being honest, and also for sharing your one-line life lessons. We really appreciate it, but the most I appreciate is you, for being who you are, for doing what you do. Thank you, and congratulations on all of your success to you and to your team, and wishing you a lot more of the same.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure being here, and look forward to seeing you again soon, hopefully in India.
Likewise.